when you in talking to these people, what did you find, what were some of the unique challenges that you were hearing? What were the themes that you were hearing?
So there's a difference between feeling successful and feeling legitimate. And we interviewed people even who were successful at a point in their life, but still didn't feel in relationship to the giants that they were born next to, that they had established a sense of their own legitimacy. So the biggest one was the whole thing about whether you felt you were enough, whether you measured up. I think that's a somewhat universal feeling, but I think when you have the experience of growing up with somebody who's built something or been part of something that's very large, and it could be the general store in the town.
Yeah.
So I'm not making it that you got to be a multi-billionaire to be a giant. And I think that was the primary thing that we found. The other things that I'd love to talk about is one, how everybody we interviewed had breaking moments.
Okay.
And then from there, we probably should touch on the fact that we discovered a path, and that by discovering that path, we really think we can make a difference in the lives in a way that, in modesty, I don't think anybody else has been done before, that would be able to change people's lives.
I love it. Well, let's dive in. Tell me a bit more about that.
Breaking moments is a very interesting idea. When I look back at my own life, I can identify a chain of breaking moments.
Okay.
And it's a very important concept that that's worth thinking about, because parents, when somebody has a breaking moment, sometimes in this current world, jump in and want to do this repair scene. But and I wouldn't encourage, I'm not looking for people to have breaking moments. But for example, Rishi, one of the people we interviewed in the book, and it's a longer story, got fired by email from his father.
Jeez.
Stopped talking to his dad for 2 years, and during that period of his life, refigured who he is and what he wanted to do. So it was a couple of years, he was crushed at first, and 2 years later, he hit a point where he had a position as a professor at a university. His dad was Indian, his mom was not. He hadn't spoken to his dad for 2 years. And he took the risk and decided that before he would start, he would go home and knock on his dad's door. And was greeted by his dad, and his dad said, "I'm so glad you did this. I wouldn't have done it." And there was a cultural thing going on in the background of that.
Sure.
But from that point on, it changed Rishi's life, and it changed his relationship with his father. So they're less dramatic examples in the book, but that's a pretty dramatic example. I call that period that he was struggling, being in a period of liminality, a feeling betwixt and between. So I'm a psychologist. I'm not calling it depression. I'm making a distinction and trying to, emphasize. And there were a couple of cases where I think it was depression, but I'm trying to emphasize that people have hard times in their life, and it's not exactly what we would think about in terms of clinical depression. It's struggling, and that it can be the beginning of the quest to figure out what you really want to do with your life.
Right. When you think about it, Maslow did a pretty good job of putting together a formula, right? Years and years ago of, am I safe? Am I, can I take risks? Do I have my autonomy? And do I make a difference? Or, how did my life matter? What's my purpose and am I going to matter? And one of the things that I've been playing with and trying to, help families to understand is that we put all these systems together for the wealth. How to create wealth, how to manage wealth, how to pass wealth. And, but there's not a ton of systems for families to be putting into place. We know in our industry that there's a lot of people like you and I it's this burgeoning, quest out there, like your quest for legitimacy, to help people to understand, there should be a system in place that the parents understand that really their job is not to be the giant. Their job is to help their children stand on their own pedestal and find out what they're passionate about and how they're going to make a difference in the world. Because if we're all cut exactly like our fathers or our mothers, it's going to be a really boring world.
One, I absolutely love that you know about Maslow, and more and more people, that name means something. May not mean something to your whole audience, but it was really the idea that development happens over the course of a lifetime. And I think rising happens over the course of a lifetime.
That's a great way to talk about it, because it's not something like, hey, okay, you're a teenager now, you're 13, you go and get your bar mitzvah, you go get your confirmation, whatever, you become you're a teenager for the first time. Now you're self-actualized, not you work that way.
Wouldn't it be nice?